The point of departure for this exhibition was very simple, but not obvious, because the proposal needs to take into consideration the space. It's the obvious classical relation between container and content. So what is the content for this container, this space? So it cannot be a retrospective or a survey exhibition because it would require a much larger space, a much bigger space. So what to do? So I didn't want to come up with a previous framework or perspective. I wanted to do an exhibition that would stem out of a very empirical and experimental process. And there was a rule for this game. There was a protocol which consisted of choosing one work and the work setting in motion the whole process of, and it is a radical construct. So it is my view on Anna's work according to this protocol. So it was very empirical, very indeterminate, the process. There was a lot of improvisation, chance encounters between different works.
One work would lead to another.
A few epiphanies in the process. But this all kind of obsessive and maniac process is just a means to an end. And the end is to come up with an exhibition that works as an exhibition, which means works through the experience of the viewer and not through my, blah, 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 blah. So it's not a discursive approach to Anna's work. It's an empirical approach that requires, of course, a much in-rooted knowledge of the work, an intimate knowledge of the work. Otherwise, this protocol wouldn't function, and the exhibition wouldn't hold. So the thing is, and of course I used different alibis. For example, in the first room, the first work I chose was a self-portrait, and I asked myself, what if the first room would be a constellation of self-portraits that never come across at first sight as self-portraits in the work of Anna?
And it is?
It is. Every single work can be seen as a self-portrait. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the title tells you. For example, the title of the bronze, the night shoes. Je dors, je travaille. I sleep, I work. It's a self-portrait. Esperança. You have the bottle. En plus, je bois. Besides everything else, I drink. Or when she has this text, I move myself only enough so that no one takes me for dead before my time comes. So she speaks often in these works in the first person, sometimes through the title, So they are self-portraits. So that helped me to start composing, stitching. There was a lot of embroidery in the process. But the thing is, it's not a room about self-portraiture. That's not the subject. That's the leitmotif, but it's not the subject. I could say that the subject is appropriation, because there are so many different ways of appropriation that also don't show off as appropriation. I think Anna is one of the most radical appropriationists, but she's not like Cheryl Levine, which I love, the work, or Richard Prince, a one-liner. So she doesn't. The work is not dressed up with the rhetorics of appropriation. That's not the issue in the work. So for Anna, appropriation is not an issue. It's just part of the modus operandi of the practice of the way she makes works. For example, that's a direct quote from a painting by Philip Gaston, The Line.
That she likes, or she just...
No, whenever she appropriates, it's out of affection for what she appropriates, whether it's a kitsch object like the clown, or this extraordinary painting by Gaston, or the improvised palette that painting comes from a A4 sheet of paper, where it's a found object with this image, this palette. It's an improvised palette. And she takes that as the motive for a whole series of paintings, changing the size and the color, you know. And she puts the title Amor Vacui. So it's very layered. But what I like about the exhibition is that I think someone that is unfamiliar with the work, that doesn't know anything about the work, can enter and play the game. I think the show is empathetic towards the viewer, not because I want to please the viewer, because actually I want to please myself. And I've been thinking a lot about Anna's work, and I just figured out that there are different works by Anna that are descendants of Marcel Duchamp, of the ready-made. That's a ready-made AD, a pure ready-made AD. The cloud, which is a found object that she paints with this blue, it's a ready-made AD. Most of the ready-mades that Duchamp, for example, has never been kind of talked about. Many of the ready-mades that Duchamp did are ready-mades auxiliados, AD, ajudados. And there are so many works by Anna that you can decide, classify as ready-made AD. But for Duchamp, there was a sovereign principle for the ready-made, aesthetic indifference. And in Anna's case, no. In Anna's case, there is no aesthetic indifference. Everything is driven by affection for the things she takes, she borrows.